I don't think men are more vain, but they are different. There's a lot less respect for women and a lot more push towards a traditional family style that just doesn't work in the US anymore. Um, you need two people making an income to survive in most cities, and men pushing for traditional values are generally not the ones making enough to support those values. Um, and they don't seem to have a lot of respect for women anymore. Some men in the US wear makeup, but it's very, very rare. It's not often. It's mostly within the gay community, or like the punk rock emo community, but you won't see like a normal guy wearing makeup. I think there has been some movement towards quote unquote more feminine men. I think it's just men being urged to express their emotions in a more productive way rather than, getting drunk and being violent and yelling and screaming. Um, Women are looking for men who are able to have a conversation and, connect with them on an emotional level to be a better partner. Um, I don't consider that more feminine. I'm sure some girls do. I think there's also because of the gay community, there's been a lot of um, gay men that are really comfortable being more feminine, and that's great for them. But in the straight community, not so much. I think most women in the US would agree. A real man is just a real man. Anyone who's a man, if you're, how do I say this nicely? There's transgender communities and men who are transgender, and whether or not you consider them a man is entirely up to you. You're allowed to think they're a man, and you're allowed to think that they're not a man because they weren't born a man. But voicing those opinions can get really tricky nowadays, um, especially with just the general political climate of the US. So if I go out and I say, you were born a female, so you're not a man, I could like get beat up for that. I can get in trouble for that. So if I think that transgender men aren't real men, I will be keeping my mouth shut about it. um, so yeah. Young adult men in the US, I don't know, it's difficult because in today's climate, women work and women go to school and women can live on their own. We don't need men. And the men in the US don't like that we don't need them anymore and that we've set up systems to not need them, because relying on them was not great. There's a lot of domestic violence and, issues like that. Um, and I think a lot of them have turned to these really toxic mindsets of, women are trash, women are stupid, women can't do anything, women should just do what we want them to do. Um, and I think that mindset is why we're dealing with this quote unquote male loneliness epidemic, is because women actually just don't want to be with you anymore, if that's how you think. Um, most women. And that's hard for them to deal with, the fact that they've turned themselves into something that we don't want. So I think young adult men in the US today have a lot of work to do, as far as, becoming people that we actually want to be around and to make our partners. Um, I also think that there's this general, just like feeling in the air of everything sucks and nothing's getting better. The economy is pretty bad right now. Finding a job is really hard because a lot of companies either are paying really bad, prices basically for employees. The minimum wage is really low. We don't make a lot of money. And they'll put out fake job advertisements. The people who do have jobs are really overworked. So I think there's just this general air of everything sucks, and that's making it difficult for young adult men to feel empowered or to feel, like a drive to work and to make money and to progress with their life. It's really holding everyone back. So I think young men in the US right now just feel really stuck. They're pretty persecuted by women because of the actions of men who are terrible. And they're falling into these, 30-year-old men with patchy facial hair making podcasts and saying all these things about women that are terrible, and they're just stuck in a really hard spot. And it's difficult for them, for sure. I think also another thing is you can't say like, "Oh, you weren't born a man, you're not a man," at work. Like that could get you fired. And you can't say it at school because that could get you expelled. So you kind of just have to keep your mouth shut and respect everybody's pronouns or opinions or whatever. And then with your own group of friends or your family or whatever, you can say whatever you want. And that varies by state too. Some states, if you say like, "Oh, that guy's not a real guy, he doesn't have a penis," then the work will be like, okay. But in a state like Oregon or California or New York, like you could get fired for that for sure. There's also a lot of different categories of men in the US. And so I think that diversity is what allows women to say, like, all men are men. There's like what we call soy boys, which is like boys that wear jeans that are rolled up at the bottom and they like, jazz music and wear sweaters. And then there's, butch men, very big built men that like, outdoor activities, hiking, fishing, stuff like that. There's like downtown men that are like men that look good in suits and wear a lot of, urban clothing and work in the city. And there's just a lot of different types of men. And I think that makes it easier for women to say, like, all men are men and have their own unique set of personality traits. And girls will pick out like a type of man and they'll only go for those men.